You checked the time. 11:40 p.m. You told yourself you'd leave the office at 6. There's a number you're chasing, a salary, a title, a round figure in an account. And the deal is simple. The deal you never actually agreed to but somehow signed. Work now, live later, grind through your 30s, your 40s, and then retirement, the beach, the version of you that finally has time. You're renting out your one life at a rate you'd never accept if someone said it out loud. All of your days now for the vague promise of some days later if you make it. 2,000 years ago, a Roman named Seneca watched people do the exact same thing, minus the office plus the togas, and he wrote a letter about it that is arguably the most useful thing ever written about time. Not time management, time. The stuff your life is actually made of. This is the 5th question we've taken to a book on this channel. We asked how to get unstuck, why you feel empty, why you care what they think, how to quiet the noise in your head. Tonight's is the one hiding under all of them. Where is your life actually going while you're busy earning the right to live it? The book is On the Shortness of Life, and the man who wrote it knew the subject better than almost anyone. Because he was rich, powerful, busy beyond belief, and eventually ordered to kill himself. So he had opinions about wasted time. Quick on Seneca. He was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, tutor and advisor to the Emperor Nero. Yes, that Nero. A statesman, a playwright, a Stoic philosopher. He had everything the salary chase promises: money, status, access, influence. And near the end, Nero, the student, accused him of treason and sent word that he was to take his own life. Which he did calmly, still talking philosophy with his friends. That's the man telling you not to waste your days. Not a monk who never had the option of a big life. A man who had all of it and saw straight through it. The letter is written to his father-in-law, Paulinus, a good, capable man with an important, busy, all-consuming job managing Rome's grain supply. And Seneca essentially tells him, "You're brilliant, you're important, and you're spending your one life on it, and that is a terrible trade. Retire into yourself. Start living." It opens with the line that reframes the whole problem. In his own words, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Read that slowly, because it flips the complaint you've had your whole life. Life isn't too short. You're just spending it like it's infinite. Here's Seneca's central, almost offensive claim. Life is actually long. Long enough. There is more than enough time in a human life to do something magnificent with it. If you don't pour most of it down the drain, he uses an image you'll recognize from your own bank account. A huge fortune handed to a bad owner vanishes in a moment. But even a modest sum in careful hands grows through good use. It's the same with your lifespan. It's plenty for the person who arranges it well. So the problem was never the length. Nature was not stingy with you. The problem is the leak. You were handed a full estate of years, and you've been quietly letting most of it run out through a hole you never patched, because you assumed the supply was endless. And here's the lesson, dropped right where it belongs. Nobody would let a stranger walk off with their property. People guard money, land, a parking space. But we hand our time to anyone who asks. An hour here, an afternoon there, whole years to a job, a feed, a grudge. The one thing you can never get back, and it's the only thing you're careless with. Watch yourself for one day. Notice how fiercely you protect your money and how casually you give away your hours. Seneca noticed that gap 2,000 years ago. It hasn't closed. Then Seneca turns to the people he calls the engrossed, or in plainer English, the busy, the preoccupied. And it is a devastating little gallery, because you will recognize everyone in it, including possibly yourself. There's the man consumed with getting rich, who, the moment he gets there, is consumed with keeping it, then growing it, then protecting it from the next man. The money was supposed to buy freedom. It bought a second job guarding the money. There's the man addicted to other people's opinions, arranging his whole life to be seen, to be greeted, to matter in rooms full of people who forget him the moment he leaves. Seneca watched Romans exhaust themselves, keeping up appearances at parties they didn't enjoy, with people they didn't like. 2,000 years before the feed, he clocked it exactly. There's the man who can't rest, who calls his restlessness ambition and mistakes motion for progress. He's always busy, never present, and if you ask him what he's building toward, he'll name a finish line he will move the second he reaches it. And here's the thing all of them share: the diagnosis under every case. They are so busy living for later that they never actually live now. Seneca's word for it is the sharpest idea in the book. In his own words, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." Postponement. You are always about to live. Next quarter, next promotion, next year, when things settle down. But things don't settle down. That's not what things do. And while you wait for the real life to begin, the only life you have is quietly being spent in the waiting room. The lesson, woven in, the future is the thief, and you keep handing it the keys. Every "I'll be happy when" is a day you agreed not to live. You've done it before. You know how the movie ends, because you already reached one of those finish lines and felt the happiness evaporate before the week was out. And still you set another one. If any of this is landing a little too close, the late nights, the moving goalposts, the life that's always about to start, good. This is the letter that was written for you. Seneca's sharpest example wasn't a clerk or a merchant or some anonymous busy man. It was the most powerful human being who had ever lived. Augustus, master of Rome, master of the whole known world. Legions at his word, gold without limit, an empire that ran past the edge of the maps. And what did Augustus want, more than any of it? Time. In his own letters, he kept circling back to a single aching wish: to lay the burden down, to finally, someday, live for himself. He talked about retirement the way an exhausted office worker talks about Friday, a promised land, always one more crisis away. But the crises never ran out, because they never do. The one thing all that power could not buy him was a single afternoon that was actually his own. He died still emperor, still busy, still waiting for the life he kept deferring to next year. And Seneca's point lands like a cold hand on the shoulder. If the ruler of the world could not purchase his own time back, what exactly makes you think a promotion will buy you yours? The trap was never a lack of money. Some of the most enslaved people in all of history wore crowns. Being busy is not the same as being important. Being powerful is not the same as being free. So who, in Seneca's view, is not wasting their life? Who actually gets the full span? His answer is strange and worth sitting with. The busy man, he says, lives only in a thin sliver of the present, too haunted by the past to look back at it, too anxious about the future to enjoy it. He has, functionally, almost no time at all, because he can't be anywhere. But the person who lives wisely, who thinks, who reflects, who reads the great minds, that person, Seneca says, possesses all of time, past, present, and future, all at once. How? Because when you sit with a great book, you are not stuck in your own tiny lifespan. You get to add every wise life that came before yours to your own. You can spend an evening with Socrates, walk with the Stoics, argue with people dead for 1,000 years. The wise person inherits every century that produced wisdom. Their life isn't 70 years long, it's as long as human thought. In his own words, "Of all people, only those are at leisure who make time for philosophy. Only those are really alive." That word, leisure. Seneca doesn't mean a vacation. He means the free mind. The person with time to think, to ask what a life is for, is the only one actually living rather than merely being carried along by the days. Lesson right here. Busyness is not the same as living, and it is often the opposite. The most booked person you know may be the least alive. The measure was never how full your calendar is. It's whether any of those hours were actually yours. Fair question by now. Fine, Seneca. But I have rent. I have people who depend on me. I can't just retire into philosophy on a Roman estate. How do I actually do this in a real life with a real job? The book is more practical than it first sounds. Seneca isn't telling you to quit and stare at the sky. He's telling you to run an audit. The same audit you'd run on money you suspected was leaking. So try it, the way you'd check a bank statement. Where did today's hours actually go? Not where you meant them to go, where they went. The commute you spent rehearsing an argument? The 2 hours the feed ate without giving anything back? The evening you gave to someone else's crisis that was never yours to carry? Add it up honestly for 1 week and you will find, with some horror, how much of your one life you are spending on things you never chose and won't remember. And then, this is the move. Start treating your time exactly like the money you guard so carefully. You already know how to protect a resource. You do it fiercely with cash. Point that same instinct at your hours. Say no to the meeting that could be an email. Guard the first hour of your morning like it's rent money. Refuse to lend an afternoon to a person or a platform that gives you nothing back. The lesson? You cannot make more time. That's the one account you can never top up. But you can stop the leak. And stopping the leak is almost entirely within your power, starting today. No resignation letter required. You don't need Seneca's estate. You need 1 guarded hour and the nerve to say no to the thief. So let's make this concrete, the way Seneca himself would have wanted it, because the man loved the language of accounting. Here is the exercise. You have 168 hours in a week. That's not a metaphor. It's a hard, countable number. Sleep takes about 56 of them. Say your job, with the commute, takes another 50. That already sounds grim. But look at what's left. 62 hours. 62 waking hours every single week that are on paper entirely yours. So where do they actually go? Be honest. The way you'd be honest about money that had gone missing from your account. An hour here on a feed you won't remember tomorrow. 2 hours there, watching something you didn't really choose so much as fail to turn off. The long evenings where you're home, but not really present for any of it. Seneca's claim is that almost nobody ever does this sum. They feel busy, they feel like there's no time. And they never once sit down and audit where the hours truly went, because the answer is uncomfortable. Do it anyway, not to shame yourself, to find the time that's already there. Because most people who swear they have no time to live are on inspection, spending 10 or 15 hours a week on things that give them nothing back. That isn't no time. That's a small fortune quietly misfiled. Now the book turns gently to the thing under all of it. The fact you've been carefully not looking at while you scheduled your life around a retirement you're assuming you'll reach. Seneca's most uncomfortable observation. People plan as if they had unlimited time. They defer, they postpone, they say someday. And they do it with the quiet, unexamined assumption that someday is guaranteed. It isn't. It never was. In his own words, you live as if you were destined to live forever. No thought of your frailty ever enters your head. This is the Stoic memento mori. Remember that you will die. And it is not morbid. It's the opposite. It's the most clarifying thought available to a human being. Because the moment you actually let it land, that this is finite, that the number of mornings is real and countable and shrinking, the fog lifts. Suddenly, it is absurd to spend a Tuesday you'll never get back rehearsing a conversation, chasing a status, waiting for permission to enjoy your own life. Seneca points at the old man on his deathbed, still saying, "I'll start really living soon." A man who spent 80 years getting ready to live and then ran out of time to do it. Don't be him. Not because the deadline is scary, but because it's the only thing that makes the present precious. The lesson: mortality is not the enemy of a good life. It's the whole reason a life can be good. Infinite time would be worthless. you'd waste all of it. It's precisely because the candle is burning down that the light matters tonight. So what does Seneca actually want from you? Not despair, not a monastery, something much smaller and much harder. Begin. Begin to live now, today, not at some future point when the conditions are perfect. Because the conditions will never be perfect, and waiting for perfect conditions is just postponement wearing a respectable coat. He's blunt about how late most people leave it. They finally start to live, he says, right at the point where they have to stop. They clear the decks, pay off the mortgage, wind down the career, and reach the free afternoon they spent 40 years earning. Old, tired, and out of the very thing they were saving up to spend. But here's the hopeful turn, and it's real. Reclaiming your life doesn't require the whole thing back at once. Seneca isn't asking for your career or your responsibilities. He's asking you to take back the part of you that thinks, that notices, that asks what this is all for, and to give it a little of your day on purpose, now. To be present for the life that is actually happening while you wait for the one you're planning. The lesson, plainly, the retirement you're dreaming of has a small, free sample available today. It's called this evening, this walk, this meal you could actually taste instead of scrolling through. You don't have to reclaim your whole life to start living it. You have to reclaim the next hour. So what changes if you take the old Romans seriously? Your job doesn't vanish. The bills don't. What changes is the trade you thought you were locked into. All of now for the promise of later. You stop renting out your entire life to a future that was never guaranteed, and you start keeping some of it for yourself, today, while it's yours. Seneca lost his life on someone else's order, but he'd already done the one thing that made that bearable. He had actually lived thought his own thoughts, kept his own hours, been present for his own days. When the end came, he wasn't a man who'd been saving up to start. That's 5. 5 questions, 5 books, same shelf. How to get unstuck. Why you feel empty. Why you care what they think. How to quiet the noise. And tonight, where your life is going while you're busy earning it. The shelf is filling. So is your one life. The only question is who's spending it, you or the thief? So, the line the whole letter leaves you with. In his own words, life is long if you know how to use it. Your first step, and it's small enough to do tonight. Take 1 hour this week that you would have given to the feed, the office, or the endless rehearsing, and give it back to yourself. Read, walk, sit with someone you love with the phone in another room. 1 hour actually lived. That's the whole practice. Do it once, and you'll want it again. And read the actual book. It's about 40 pages, a letter from a dying man who had everything and saw through all of it, trying to hand you the one thing he couldn't keep. This was the story. The book is the wake-up call. Told, not taught. Same climb, next rung.